When I met the survivors of Nova, it was at a healing camp with my brother Sam, who's here in Israel. We arrived in the morning at 7 a.m. and we were at a kibbutz by 8. And we saw things that no one should ever see. We saw devastation. Unfortunately, the blood was still on the walls. The smell we'll never forget. And then we went from those communities to the Nova field. And we kind of expected to see what we saw, unfortunately. We knew this kind of evil was in the world because of our family background and the stories of the Holocaust, and my grandmother being in Auschwitz, my grandfather being in Dachau, and my unfortunate experience with someone who had the same ideology as Hamas, who committed a terrorist attack at one of our shows in Manchester. But when we arrived on the 4th day, we went to the Nova Healing Camp, and we saw kids 20 to 24 years old. Many who had lost friends, who had witnessed the things you're going to see, who gave interviews, and they were laughing and crying and singing music and doing therapy together, writing songs. And I sat with one young lady who had lost all of her friends. She was the only survivor out of a group of friends. And she said to me, she goes, you're here, you understand, but if I was out there in the world and I didn't know, maybe I would hate me too. And it was the first time on the trip where I became incredibly angry. Because what happened to those kids at a music festival, the same music festival where our families would have gone to Coachella, or Stagecoach, or Governor's Ball. It was truly a music festival, and these kids were murdered as they were running away, as they were hiding in porta potties, as they were trying to escape in cars. And the world just abandoned them. The world was quiet, the world was silent. The industry I'd given my life for 23 years wasn't saying anything. And I was confused because when we had a terrorist attack in Manchester, 22 people were killed and many more maimed and injured. And within 2 weeks, the entire world rallied behind us. And we threw One Love Manchester just 2 weeks later, which was the biggest concert in the world, broadcast on every major network, every social media site. And every artist from the entire community showed up. 6-hour concert with the biggest names in music. And here I was standing in front of these kids where 380, and now the total is over 400 were killed. 40 were taken hostage. It's the biggest music massacre in history, and no one was saying anything. So we went on a quest to start helping, and we brought the Nova Music exhibit to New York City. This exhibit is the original tents, the original cars that were burned, the lost and found, the footage that both Hamas themselves broadcasted, and those kids as they were running away trying to get to their families broadcasted on their phones. And the way we put together this exhibit was very different from what would happen in Tel Aviv, because everyone in Israel already knew what had happened, had experienced it. But we wanted to do something here that made people understand that Nova, and what happened to those kids, and what happened here, and what you're going to see, these were innocent people. And it is absolutely inexcusable that we as a world and as a community can't come forward and denounce this behavior. And I am glad that, a special announcement, I've said it before, but we are officially opening in mid-August in Los Angeles. Running that exhibit through October, and I can tell you there's nothing political about it. It is truly about a music festival, and the way we're doing the tickets, the same way we did in New York, $2 to $8 just to cover the processing fees, and half the time we're going to be letting in people for free. Because we don't want to give anyone an excuse not to witness this and see themselves and their humanity. And that is kind of why I'm here today. My brother and friends invited me. I've seen the film, and like I said, you're all brave, and I'm honored to see this many people here to witness it on a Monday night. Sexual violence and rape should never be used in warfare, should never be used at all, and it should never be excused. Unfortunately, with all the evidence, God, myself, and others, the UN finally acknowledged it, but it took 6 months for them to say the evidence was credible. And in that time, we saw many of our own politicians deny this. And I want to be clear on the main reason I'm here. I always get a kick out of the fact that people think I'm here because I'm Jewish, because my family's Holocaust survivors. That's a big part of my identity. But like many of you, I've been there as a part of other, calls for help. And what bothers me the most, and why I'm glad that there's so many from different communities here, is that two things can be true. And when I teach my children, just like so many of you teach yours, empathy should not have a limit. I should mourn for your family in Gaza the same way you mourn for these people. I should want aid going into Gaza the same way I want hostages to come home. And you do not have to pick sides to have empathy and have a seat at the table for humanity. And I think every single... So the reason I'm here is just to say, please, this is not about sides. This is about seeing your daughter. It's about seeing your mother. It's about seeing your friends. It's about seeing your sister. And speaking to others and demanding they see this film and saying no, and not letting a very loud minority divide us. Because I can assure you that we are in the majority. So with that, I want to thank you for having me. I want to thank my brother Sam for inviting me to the screening, and then I found out I was hosting. If you're from a Jewish family, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you once again for coming to see this, and you'll see a video from my friend later, but I can tell you that so many people put a lot into this film and took a lot of risks.